everybody, for being here today again. I hope you're enjoying the day. And thank you very much to our discussion panel, who I was very lucky when I thought, should we talk about this? And should I do it on my own? And I thought, maybe I need some help. So it's probably, the more opinions we have, the best. So I'm very happy to introduce our discussion panel. Before I introduce each person here, you see we have Professora Paula there in the panel. Unfortunately, she's very sick. They went to Singapore for some capoeira work and she got some sort of flu there. So she called me on Wednesday saying she was very unwell and in bed and she thought she'd be better by today, but unfortunately she isn't. So we send our best wishes that she's better soon. But she did share a little bit of what she would have liked to talk about, so I'll share that when it gets to her turn. And let's do story sharing, okay? So we have Treinel Madeira from Grupo No Chão. Madeira has been practicing capoeira for 17 years. She's been 16 years, and she's been she has been teaching capoeira here in Brisbane for a very long time, as well, for 8 years. So thank you, Madeira, for being here. We have Professora Paula from Lennox Head. Paula has been doing capoeira for 22 years, and she's she has a class in Lennox Head. I actually wrote there Barumbe, but that wasn't the point. And then we have Instructora Pensadora from Graduada. Pensadora has also been doing capoeira for 16 years, so thank you, Pensadora, for being here. And we also have Graduada Serenata from Newcastle, from Graduada. Serenata has been doing capoeira for 8 years. She, alongside Kevin, right? They teach in one of Rwanda's locations in Newcastle. So thank you for being here. So the idea here is, I know probably the first question that comes is we're talking about diversity, but we only have women here. And that's for a reason, because the goal of this is I'll introduce the topic and that we actually get one point of view. That's what are the challenges, because there are not many people who not many women who get to the teachers that. So we're here to learn from real stories, real life stories from real people, what the challenges are, how they overcome it. And hopefully we learn a little bit from them. But it will be great to hear other people's experiences and men's experience as well. Okay, so before you get too sleepy, I want to make sure you get what's the key message that I have for you here today. And it is my opinion that capoeira only exists because it has evolved along its history. If capoeira was to be today what it was when it first started, I don't think any of us would be here. And I truly believe that if capoeira is to continue to evolve, it needs to have the diversity that we see in society. And that's a broad range of diversity of gender. Okay, so if you were to take anything from this here today, is that, we need to have the diversity in capoeira that we see out in society so that it can realize its full potential. So our agenda for today is we are looking at some reasons why gender diverse progression in capoeira matters. We are learning about the challenges for progression with the personal stories from our panel, and we'll offer some tips on what we think everybody can do to assist us in building more equity in capoeira. We're going to look at the difference between equality and equity as well. So, to get started, we know that there are many bases for discrimination, right? There's discrimination of age, disability, race, physical appearance, sex, gender, and sexuality, family status, criminal records, socio-economic status, and the list goes on. And we are aware of that, and we're not negating any of those things. Just for the purpose of this discussion, we'll focus in gender only. So, hopefully, you know, but it's something that I learned recently, that there are differences between these three categories of it, between sex, gender, and sexuality. So basically, sex is what's assigned to you at birth. Male, female. Gender identity is about how one person sees themselves. And as you can see here, this is not shown as a binary thing, it's not black and white. These things happen along a spectrum. So people could be anywhere along the two ends of that spectrum. Gender expression is how people express themselves. Some people might be a bit more masculine, some people might be a little bit more feminine, and many things in between. And the last one is sexual orientation, which is about who people are attracted to, which can also change. To men, to women, to both, to none. And these things can change along a person's life too, okay? So, it's not the goal here that we go deep into the subject, but it was just something that I thought was important to point out in the context of this discussion. So why should we bother? Should we bother about this? I thought it would be interesting to give you two examples of two very respectable organizations that we have here in Brisbane and Australia-wide that put a lot of effort into gender discrimination. Just as a disclaimer that I should have said in the beginning, I'm not a researcher. This is all my personal opinion based on my experiences and my readings. And the examples I'll give here, again, they're my own opinion. I'm not representing any of these organizations, but I use them as examples, okay? So the first one is CSIRO. I don't know if many of you know, but this is Australia's national research agency. They employ more than 5,000 people Australia-wide, and they have a lot of initiatives in gender diversity. In private sector, gender equity, balance, so flexible work conditions for parents who have kids. And the fourth one, Male Champions of Change, which is a very interesting program where you have men stepping up to coach, to mentor, and help women progress in their career, work through their fears, what is it that's holding them off, and they become an advocate to help them through the process. That's one example. The other one is the University of Queensland. You probably all know it's one of the world's top 50 universities. They employ more than 6,600 staff. They have more than 53,000 students, and they have lots of gender equality initiatives. I've been lucky enough to participate in a day-long workshop they provide to all staff that's about the second item that UQ Align Network. So you go there and you learn everything about gender, and you don't become an expert in sex, gender, and equality, but what it does is it makes you aware that we need to pay attention to these things, and you become a safe place for people to go and talk to if they would like, okay? So I just want to say, if you look at the profile here, you would expect these people, they have some level of education, but it's not about that. These are things that we are brought up with, that we are led to believe certain things are a certain way. So no matter how educated, or if you haven't had access to education, the point is not that. The point is that we need, as society and things progress, we need to talk about these things, okay? So, gender diversity in capoeira, why are we talking about this? I saw this sentence and I thought it was very powerful. This lady, she used to be an Australian sex discrimination commissioner, Elizabeth Broderick, and she said that she's learned that if we don't intentionally include, the system unintentionally excludes. Hopefully you all know the story of the ugly duckling. So he was born different because he was a swan. All his brothers and sisters pointed the finger at him saying, he's different, what's wrong with him? And all the other animals did the same. And he felt, I don't belong here because I don't look like these people, therefore I better go off and look for people like me. And that's very sad. So the idea is, the brothers and sisters and the other animals had no bad intention. They didn't mean it. But they saw the difference as something of notice, but it had a negative effect on the person who was discriminated against. So, this is not to name and shame, it's just to give an example. We need to learn from facts of reality, right? So, we've been discussing this within Capoeira Beribazu for a while now, gender diversity, and what have we done wrong in our 47 years of history? Because when we look at our teaching cohort, masters and professores, we have estagiário, monitor, instructor, contra mestre and mestre. We have 5 levels of teaching belts. And that's our distribution in terms of gender. When you look at teachers and masters, 15% are women and 85% are men. The sample here is 251 people. So of 251 teachers and masters, we have 39 women. When you look at the belts, you see that we have a wide base, and as it progresses to the top, it gets very thin. saying that this applies to all capoeira groups or even to the whole capoeira community. But from what I've seen in my short experience, I think it's safe to assume that perhaps the numbers are similar. So then, out of curiosity, I thought I'm going to look at the gender distribution in these people who signed up for this event. And this was very good. These are students. Okay, so we have 55% women, 44% men. But then when we look at the teachers who said they were coming and a few are still coming this afternoon, that's what we have. So we have a little bit better, 18% and 81%. Okay, so the thing here is, as we move into what are the possible reasons, and these are all speculations, right? There's not a lot of research as far as I know. Perhaps there is just not a lot of them to work on the cause, but there's assumptions. A lot of people have been talking about this, and there are assumptions. The first one, which becomes evident if we consider these facts, just for the sake of the analysis, we have great attraction rates, but there's something going wrong with the rotation. I mean, people are interested, women are interested in capoeira, so much so that more than 50% of the students here are women. But as things progress, as we get old, as life gets its own way and turns, things get a little bit shaky. Perhaps it could be that there's a slow progression in terms of belt to teaching belts or within teaching belts when compared to men. Why would that be? Perhaps there's the same performance expectation from gender diverse people. You expect that everybody has to report or present certain results. The impacts of pregnancy. Most people, they could, and I could be wrong here, every group's different, but most people could be getting close to their teaching belts in their late 20s, early 30s, which coincide with the time when people might be having kids these days. And the impacts of pregnancy, yes, it impacts men as well when kids are born. But if you're pregnant, if you're trying to get pregnant, you'll be more careful in your game. If you're pregnant, you have to be careful. You have a baby, you need to recover, and then you breastfeed. The World Health Organization recommends that people breastfeed for 2 years. So say if you're breastfeeding for 2 years after that, that's 3 years, and if you decide to have more kids, you do the math. And the other one, which I think perhaps is also another one, is lack of role models. If we have a gender dominance, people might not see themselves in that position and think, therefore, no, am I? Because capoeira requires dedication, it's not something that's easy for it to say, and they perhaps may think, am I really going to put all this effort into it if I don't see myself there, because I only see people that are so different from me? Another thing that I think it's better and better these days, but there's a lot of derogatory songs in capoeira towards women. There is also sexual harassment, which is another thing that I think we're getting better at it, but you still hear case. And the other one is unconscious bias. So we're going to explore this one in a little bit more detail. So unconscious bias, hopefully this image explains what it is. They are learned stereotypes that usually they are unconscious to us, and research says that 70% of our mental activity, 70% of what goes on in our mind happens on our unconscious mind, and only 30% happens on our conscious mind. With that being the case, and with most of us, because of our upbringing, our cultural background, the experiences we've gone through life, we tend to have certain stereotypes. When you see a person, you might make some assumptions of the way they behave, the things they might like, what they might become. If they're coming to capoeira, they may take this route, they may take another. So the problem with unconscious bias is that they are automatic, unintentional, deeply ingrained, and able to influence behavior. That's why we need to pay attention. So remember what we said in the beginning, if we don't intentionally include, the system might unintentionally exclude. So we need to pay attention to these things. The way we're judging, we assess our attitudes. And you probably have heard a lot about equality, gender equality. But actually, researcher says that what's missing is equity. So there's a very subtle difference here, but I think it makes all the difference. This is a situation, can you see the image well? Of equality. So everyone has access to see the game, but they are different. So the access that's being given doesn't work for everybody. On the second one, they said, oh, there's a problem here. How about we give a step, one more step to the shortest person there? So again, equality. We've adapted a little bit, okay? But the third situation, from equality to equity, is when we set up criteria for which everybody has a chance, regardless of how different they are. So basically, equality is about treating everyone the same. And equity is acknowledging that gender diverse people have different needs. And that's what we're talking about here. It's not making it easy for ones if you're looking from a standpoint of one that's different. Okay, seeing what's the particularity of this person that we need to address instead of thinking everyone is different. So that's the idea. Hopefully it gave you an idea of why we're talking about this. And what we'll do now, we'll have the panel sharing their stories, which will be between 3 and 5 minutes, how they started capoeira, how they managed to progress, what challenge they face from a gender point of view, and why they think this is important for the future of capoeira. And once we've done this, we're going to have open up for questions and answers after that. Okay? All right.
I'm going to hold this here and try and be loud. I hate microphones, but I acknowledge these. So my name is Madeira in Capoeira, and I'll just go through this list and kind of talk a little bit about each. Up a little bit. So how did I start capoeira? I started capoeira in New Zealand. My chin? Okay. I started capoeira in New Zealand in 2000. My first lesson in capoeira was in Wellington when I lived there. But really it started because my housemate played capoeira and she would play Treinel on the Portuguese. And then the Treinel and every song was in New Zealand. So I heard the music and I went along and I went to capoeira and said, oh, that's a really rubbish way of fighting. So I just tried to do fighting things. And then I moved to Scotland and I went, oh, I might try that capoeira thing again. And I trained for maybe 6 months with Senzala District and I got told that there was another group who practiced in the same hall after the class with Senzala. And it was capoeira on roll and it was a bit weird. And that's my jam. So I went along and I met my teacher, Professor from and I met him and he was just this beautifully supportive and gentle soul who really supported all the students in capoeira. And he's actually retired from capoeira now, but he still taught very regularly and he gives his wisdom to us. So that was my beginnings in capoeira. And then I moved to Australia. I moved to Townsville and trained for a little bit with Capoeira Beribazu up there and opened my mind. I went from Capoeira to Pensadora, and then I moved to Brisbane and found at the time good and then realised that I was missing my teacher, and I wanted to pass on the love that I got from her. So I started teaching with my teacher's permission, and that was 8 years ago. I continue to do that now under his business. So how did I manage to progress? I talked about this previously with Deia and Paula. I've always felt very held and supported by all of the men out there throughout my entire career. And I was very, very lucky. I know this isn't everyone's experience. And I want to also acknowledge that perhaps it's me being a slight oddity in the world. very traditional Afro-Brazilian art form. I'm handicapped by these things. I'm very aware of them. So there's a concept in queer culture which is, if you get kicked out of your family because you're gay, you're going to be fine in family. You haven't chosen that. And they're the people that support you and will be your family who love you regardless of what. And I think I took that concept with me into Capoeira. So I always associated myself with teachers who loved and cared for me and nurtured me, other people who felt the same way. So I want to give respect to that cultural concept for helping me progress in Capoeira, which seems like a strange link to me. But it's really about this idea of choosing who you associate yourself with, finding people who have the same ethics and morals as you, the same vision of Capoeira as you, and who help you be a better person. And I think that's really important. The challenges I face is this microphone. The challenges I faced have been usually myself. I am my biggest challenge, but that's because I'm working in a world that often disadvantages me. And if I continually fight that, I'm going to go nuts. Sometimes I just need to say, this is not working for me, can you please do something about it? And those challenges have been things like some Gibraltar is an incredibly gendered space. If you're not a heterosexual person, you will find it very uncomfortable if everyone suddenly says, go and be sexy with a man. I don't know. So how do in my group we do this like everyone dances with everyone else. And it's a dance you do with your friends and it's fun. And if you want to be a bit flirty with someone, that's cool, we don't mind. And we respect that everyone in this context respects everyone's boundaries. Don't ever step boundaries and ask questions. Other challenges, probably the distance from my teacher. So this is not a gendered kind of problem in a way, but Capoeira is, we have tiny groups spread across the world. And if you're lucky, you get to see ministry once or twice a year, or if you're meeting every 4 years. So that's been my biggest challenge. Why do I think this topic's important? Because we are Capoeira. We are all Capoeira except for and we need to all feel like we are held by Capoeira and we can contribute positively. We need to be able to take the seeds of the past and make them grow. And we can't do that if we feel like we don't belong here. So we do all the
Thanks for inviting me to be here today. I started Capoeira when I was 14. I was not sure what it was either. My brother was going to this Capoeira place, which was very close to my house. And in Brazil, it's this, I was fortunate enough to live in a nice suburb. And the capoeira was held in it was not a favela or anything, but it was a community center which was very close to my house, which I didn't know about it, because I feel like my parents always try to protect me and put me in a bubble, which I'm grateful. But so my brother said like, let's go, I'll take you there, and my mom, I don't think my mom knew I was going. So I went and I was like, I felt really, how do I say, out of the, fished out of the water, like you say in Portuguese, because not because I was a girl, there was a couple of girls there, but because I was white and I was from the suburb next. So I felt really that people said, what are you doing here? You don't belong here, go away. So it was very confronting. My parents didn't like me to go, so I couldn't go for a long time. Only if my brother take me. And so it'd be like, I was choosing, and Thursday was like, please take me, please take me. And sometimes he didn't even go, but he would take me and he would do something else, and I would really want to go. With time, I became part of it, and the same way I always respect my group, they start respecting me because they realized I was genuine, and I was just not there to whatever. I was there because my heart called me to be there. So that was my master, Mestre Geninho. He is a student of Mestre Cosmo, who came from the Grupo Capoeiroo da Bahia, Grupo Mestre Miguel Machado, was a capoeira regional group back in the 60s, 70s. Yeah. So with time, I felt like I found my place in capoeira. How did I manage to progress? So in that group of people, there was a very, I got in trouble once to say that, at Kazam's event. I said it was a violent place, and I got in trouble saying the word violent, but it was hostile. I found that word better. So I wasn't, I've always been treated the same in that group. I was not spared because I was a girl. I was a girl that was 15 and 16 and so on. So I was treated the same. I think if anyone was kind of sabotaging me, it was myself, because it's like, what? I'm a girl. How dare they kick me? So I was like, no, this is not okay. And I was like, I was really, wow, is that what's going to happen? But at the same time, I was scared. I was so attracted to it because I felt that place so truthful, and people were so real there. And I haven't really been protected from my childhood. I'd never been exposed to that amazing culture that Brazil is. Sorry. Oh my God. How did I progress? So I managed to progress just because I put myself out there, and I was not scared. I was scared, and then I lost that fear of being kicked and being whatever in that roda, and that just I gained respect just for being there, and that's how I managed to progress. The challenge, there was a challenge, my self-sabotaging. I think I was the one at the end of the day that was seeing myself as a fragile one, because everyone was treating me the same. So I was like, oh, wow, I got slapped in the face. How dare they slap me in the face? And I was like, in my master, and I remember, I'm just going to say that, and I'm going to pass the microphone, because that was a very important experience for me. I was in this roda, and then this guy came, and I was playing for the same graduation. I was at the same age, same level, and I was playing for this guy, and then I was being a bit cheeky. And then his teacher went to the Volta Mundo and said, how dare you? You're gonna be defeated by a woman in front of me and in front of everyone. I was like, oh, okay. And then we got back, and then once we did that, back to the roda, he kicked me hard in my stomach here. I fell off and just pass off a little bit. It was terrible, and my master didn't stop the roda, and he didn't say anything. I was like, how, after a couple of days, didn't go training for a few weeks, I said, how dare? I didn't say how there, because that was not how I spoke to him. I was like, I'm upset because you didn't back me up. And he's like, well, do you want to play capoeira or not? So no one's going to spare you. If you want to play capoeira, that's capoeira, welcome, you got to be prepared. So that's when I said, okay, yeah, I need to stop sparing myself from this situation, because I'm equal than everyone. Yeah.
Just before I move on, do you have any considerations? You have 2 kids, right? Does that affect you?
I do. So, after many years, I had my kids, my son, and I remember I decided to start teaching again at Suffolk Park, and that was 9 years ago, and then he was 6 months old, and I felt a terrible mom leaving him home to teach capoeira, and my ex-partner, who was not very supportive, said to me, how can you do that? It's that time. He needs to go to bed. Like, how are you gonna go and teach capoeira to people that you don't even know? I was like, I felt really bad doing that. I felt like I was a rebel mom doing that. So yeah, it was a very challenging time for me. I would only progress in capoeira if my partner was in capoeira. So that was something that I've always thought. Without that, it would be hard for me to leave the family behind and go and spend the whole weekend, here, for example. That's why I have separated. Thank you.
No, all good. I think I'll touch on the whole motherhood thing in a second, because I've got a few things that resonated with me as well. So I started my, I'm Pensadora. I started my journey with Capoeira was actually when I was temporarily in California in the US, and I had a friend that said, oh, I'm doing this really cool thing, you should come and check it out. So I went. That was with Bessie Tabora. I was in Santa Cruz. And I only had a few weeks there, so I only got to try it for a few weeks, and I was completely mesmerized because it was this thing that I'd never seen before. I'd done a bit of martial arts before, but this was just this crazy combination of music and sort of martial arts, but movement and this whole kind of feeling of moving in your body. But then I moved, and I went to the UK, and so I went and did a capoeira in a few different schools there. But none of them really ever felt like a home, I guess, like the right community. So it wasn't actually until I came to Brisbane and joined what was then Zambia Congo, and Contramestre Capo. That's kind of when I felt that I'd found the capoeira home, if that makes sense. Because I mean, at the end of the day, capoeira is about the community as well. So it is about the martial art, and it is about the beautiful sport that we do, the sport, the whole thing, the whole package. But a big part of that package is the community and that feeling. So I guess you have to find the one that suits you, I think, and your personality and who you are. Well, in terms of the progression bit, so I guess I've been lucky because I feel like I've been supported in my group. There's been a lot of ups and downs, but that's just life, and we all have that. And I think, I'm just trying to remember the things I wanted to say when I was listening to your story. That's right. I'm not good. I'll get to that in a second. So, but I guess one of my biggest challenges, but this is all personal, because we all have challenges in life, all of us do, so it depends on what your personality is. I'm very self-critical, so I think my biggest challenge has been self-criticism and how you progress in your game, because I mean, at the end of the day, capoeira is for life, so you have this lifelong journey, and it will change the way that you do it, and the way you do your game, and the whole thing. So mine was a self-criticism, and I felt, in order for me to deal with that fear of being kicked, or like being smaller as well, there's limitations when you try takedowns and everything. It's different, you have to adjust what you do, so I guess I found that as a challenge personally. And so my solution back then, I guess, was to start Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But that was more not to bring that to the capoeira game, but more a mental thing to get that confidence, I guess, that you can go in a harder and not maybe be a little bit less afraid if something happens. It was more that. So doing a bit of Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu helped me personally. So there you go. That's nothing, but I mean, because we are talking about. But in terms of motherhood, it really resonated with me because you really want to keep going, and then you feel like a bad mother because you're bringing the child to this world, and I've dragged Edwin to a lot of capoeira throughout his life. And so, I mean, he's been there, he still comes several nights, I mean, it's the same as you, probably. So you kind of think, maybe that's a bit crazy, people look at you, they should be going to bed at 7 or whatever, but he doesn't, he never has. So, I don't know what to do about that. And I mean, that's lucky because I guess we both do capoeira, so I think there is that support, that we can do it together and bring him and drag him to things. He personally doesn't actually do capoeira, but that's right, maybe see what time brings. But yeah, but it is challenging because even if you actually train the whole time when you're pregnant and then later on, it's not the same game. You have to change because you have to be a bit more careful. But I think if that does happen to you, you might not progress in the same way that you think you progress, but because you're changing your game, you'll still learn something from that experience, even the way you have to adjust it so that you don't, you're a bit less aggressive, I guess. So I think there's always things to learn from every little challenge. But I mean, I think, in general, I think this topic is very important because we all have our unconscious biases. There's no way to get around that. And there's many things that happen as we go through life and we go through capoeira and things that we see. And it's more an opportunity just to reflect on certain situations. And so I think just to touch very briefly on the sexual harassment bit, because there are things that happen. And this is not a blame thing, but maybe just an opportunity to reflect on it. So, I'm just going to give one example and then pass on the mic. So we have many events where we bring teachers from other places. They come and teach classes, and that's great. And it's just sometimes, and these are very subtle things, but I think we do need to bring them up. In some of those situations, these people are very highly guarded, and we all respect them and everything, but they'll do certain things to women in a class that's not professional. And if we ever bring it up, it just kind of gets, no, that's okay, that's kind of cultural, so no, we don't have to worry about it. But, so to draw a parallel to another Brazilian martial art, when you also have very distinguished people, Brazilian, that come over, and that's a much more up close and personal sport, these things do not happen in the same way. So it's just something to reflect on, that's all. I'll leave it there.
Kind of in awe of all these women up here, like amazing people. So I started capoeira when I was 17, and it was mainly because my father also teaches martial arts. Some of you might have met him in Sparta. He does capoeira now because of me, and I do martial arts because of him. So I started, I did a couple of little things along the way, tried them out, and felt they weren't for me, like Wing Chun and ninjutsu and things like that. But now I teach him capoeira and he teaches me Kali. So we have this beautiful exchange that goes on. And like these women up here, I've found that the males in my life have supported me, and I think the thing about choosing your family is like really important. If you don't have people that support you in your life, you should find people that do. And you should also offer that support to those people. It should be a give and a take. It's not just one-sided. And in capoeira, that's super important. Like the jogo is a conversation, right? It's not just all about yourself, it's about the other person. I think someone said in one of the workshops that you are responsible for the other person in the game. And this is what this is about, right? Like you, as males, you are responsible for like ensuring that the females feel comfortable in your classes and in the roda, and us as females likewise. Like things about sexual harassment go both ways. It's not just one-sided, and it does happen not just in capoeira but in life. And so capoeira is a reflection of that. So if you're thinking about what happens in your classes, you should also think about what's happening outside of your classes and why that's coming into it. So how did I manage to progress? I have Mestre Borracho is my master, and he's I like to think he's very respectful and encourages people equally. I don't think I was talking earlier to my friend saying, I don't think I've ever felt like he's said something because of gender, to be honest. I've always felt when he gives criticism, it's equal and it's appropriate to what's happening in the situation. The challenges I face, I think Pensadora was talking about when you're doing techniques, and as someone who is small, doing things like takedowns are, like, I have to have perfect timing and perfect technique to take someone down. If you're a bit bigger, you don't have to have perfect technique, you just have to have timing, right? These things kind of go hand in hand, and I've definitely faced that challenge. My way of overcoming it was to just avoid them for a little while. It's not the best way, but we'll practice them later at some point. Yeah.
How much time do I get? Do I get to keep going? Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah. I was like, I've got a shorter amount of time in capoeira to these guys. They've got some awesome stories. I definitely think this topic is important, and like we said, it's not just about gender, but it is about all the different things that could come up in capoeira. I did notice, like, you looked at the gender balance of this event, but just as something to think about when you're doing demonstrations with people and you're training with people, how often are you doing it with both genders or the multitude that exist here? Is it just like, as well, because there are a lot of high belts here that are males, is it just that we're pulling them out because like we're going for the high belt, or should we be aware of this and try and make it equal? That was just kind of my thoughts when we're thinking about this. Yeah.
I'll be Paula now. Paula here. much ago. So I'll just briefly touch on the points that she shared, and I think they're very valid, and I'm glad she did that. So she's been capoeira for 24 years. She said she initially started informally. She had a boyfriend that she met this guy, started going to capoeira with him, and she started enjoying it. And for 3 years, she was just going and not expecting much of it. And then after a while, she realized that was her thing. And she had it with herself that if she was to progress, she really had to take it seriously and dedicate herself and train and, you know, go on her own journey of learning. And overall, she always felt that she was very supported by the men around them. She thinks, she sees the value of this discussion, but she never felt she was a victim of, you know, as a woman, she never felt in that position. And she gave as an example that she got her teacher belt when she was 8 months pregnant as well. And but then things changed soon after that. She decided she used to be okay until then, no kids, no injuries, and then once her son was born, she started to have injuries, and she was a single mom with her son, and things just got all too much. Before her life was capoeira, she was making a living of teaching and traveling and all of that, and once she had her son, things changed so much that she stopped capoeira for 4 years and said, oh, you know, this is it for me, I'll have to choose my priorities here, and unfortunately, obviously, well, luckily, in a way, it was her son that she gave priority to. And after 4 years, when she moved to Australia, that's when at the same 4 years period, she went to study and became a personal trainer, and then she moved to Australia, and then that's when she went back to teaching as well. And she actually also just mentioned that she set up her own kids class in Pulangata now as well, so she has her own space and, you know, looking to build up that. But the key message that she had is that she always felt men, because there were so many capoeira, they were always her best allies, in the sense that they always supported her, and she never felt she received different treatment based on gender. And she thinks, obviously the topic's valid, but she thinks it's when you realize that this is the thing you want to do, and you stand up for yourself and you dedicate yourself, people will respect you. If you go on, build your own work, and if you're present, and one thing she noted, she thinks, you know, the whole thing about how much you can do and perform is most important, she felt in the beginning of her journey, but later on, it's her dedication, it's her work, it's being there for the capoeira community. That's the thing that matters. Yeah, so that's that from her. And should I share my bit about this? Yeah. So, for me, I started capoeira because my sister started it, and she came home after her first class and she said, I just did this capoeira thing and it's awesome, you should come and you're gonna love it. And I was like, really? And she goes, no, you're gonna like it. So then I went and I came back home the same way she had. So thanks to my sister. And that was with Mass Falcão 17 years ago. And it's been a very interesting journey since then. We had an interesting, there was Mass Falcão and lots of his students who had moved from Brasília to Florianópolis who helped teaching, and some of the people who had developed along those years. And I didn't think much about it, and I always, like you guys were saying, I always felt supported. But it wasn't until I started to progress to higher levels. I had the element of self-criticism as well, but I think I only came to realize this very recently, that the challenge I faced was probably now, with the benefit of hindsight, was the lack of role models. Because I compared myself, especially like with backgrounds that I have lots of physical limitations. And I always looked up to a lot of men, because we all know, and capoeira is very unique in the sense that we have men and women equal in the roda playing the game, whereas in talking sports specifically, men and women usually separate. And also in categories by weight and power and so on and so forth. So capoeira is very unique in the sense you have all those elements together. And I always, all the role models I had, most of them being men, and then I thought I'll never be able to be like that. And because I started teaching with Pequeno, I sort of for a while stayed on his shadow, because even like comparing, like we got together when I was 6 months into capoeira, and it's been 17 years now, so we've been always together in this journey, and I looked up for himself, but I also compared myself to him a lot. And I thought, well, if I cannot be like that, then I'm, you know, obviously it's my personal problem, but when I looked into our peers, other men teachers, then I thought, but you know, maybe I'm not as fast or as strong as that, and there might not be a role for me. And then recently I started to have a lot of women as role models, and I started to see and look up to them, and I'm like, you know what, there is a space there, and I just need to, you know, find what are the strengths that I have, can I work with my limitations, and then try and go on this journey. So that's where I'm at. I don't have any, you know, final answers, but then I thought, and, you know, a lot of people here have inspired me, and I always say to Madeira, for example, she just set up her monthly roda a few years ago, and she's always there, you know, and those things, they all make you think, you know, there's a space, you just need to do it for yourself, but it's been a process, and like more and more it takes time to realize that I had to find other role models for people that I found were, you know, I could see myself in them. But the challenge have nonetheless probably been pregnancy and obviously the injuries. And with the two, Pequena and I being together on this, it's easier, but some kids sometimes just want their mom. So the first year was okay because the guy didn't walk, he slept a lot, and then when he started walking, I was like, Pequena, today is your day of babysitting duty, and I'm going to teach, and then we're going to swap. But Gabi had another idea, and, you know, like he was the one who was ruling the castle, you know, for a while. So it was like early this year, that he became okay with us teaching, us doing our thing for those 2 hours a week, and him find something else for that time, you know. So that's definitely been challenging. And it's like this, you know, you're leaving a crying child behind sometimes, and like to go to class and you go, oh my God, am I really bad? But they say, you know, you're only the best parent if you can look after yourself first. It's like put the oxygen mask on you first, and then the kids are like, no, I'm putting the oxygen mask on them. So that's sort of that. But, well, I guess why I think this topic is important, I think it's maybe selfish. I think it's important because it took me a long time to realize certain things. Maybe it's out of ignorance, and hopefully people don't think that way. They don't compare themselves as much. And I also think that giving visibility to people is important, right? For people to see that, you know, everybody goes through challenges, and and sometimes it's not a discrimination, but one thing here, you see, most people said they always felt supported, but they said they lacked confidence, or there was an element of self-criticism here. And it would be interesting to hear later, do men feel the same way? Probably they do too, but in a conversation with Master China, he was saying he left now to come to Australia, and you have all women that you left teaching your classes, right? Ficaram só as mulheres dando as aulas. And then they were not sure, they were like, they said, can we really do this? We're not sure we can do this. And he said, I'm telling you, you're capable of doing this. But they were still not sure. He said, do you want me to print a photo of you and put on the walls? You're really good. But then that's when I shared with him, you know, the way I felt, because I compared myself to others, and I just felt, you know, because I didn't see people like me that wasn't capable. He said, perhaps that's something, it's the subtle thing that perhaps for the teachers, and we'll get to that in a second, to also, you know, consider. But yeah, I think it's important that we give visibility. We cannot change things if we don't talk about them, just for studies. So let's move on. So just before we go into Q&A, some suggestions, right? One thing is support, which is what we're talking about here. Encouraging gender diverse actions and voices. Goes along with this one, mentor people. So this thing that I mentioned just there, try to counter the real fears of gender diverse individuals. If you have people that you see as a teacher, perhaps as a male teacher, they have potential, but what's holding them back? Perhaps it's asking the question, having that conversation, or if you are on the other end of the spectrum too. I want to progress, you know. I know a lot of people who, they have done their homework, they have all it takes, but sometimes they lack confidence. Maybe talk to your teacher, I feel this way, what do you think, what could I do? Reassess. So for everybody, have a lot of unconscious bias being driving your behavior and your actions. Is there something there that perhaps you can reconsider, especially the preconceived ideas, you know, it's this person looks like this, therefore that's the outcome. Become an ally. So you know how we talked about UQ, they have the ally network. So hopefully this session we're having here is giving you some tips to think about this. If you become an ally, you may be that person that stands up when you are in a male-dominated environment and a woman stands up and then somebody makes a comment related to their physical appearance, which you would not do to a man, for example. And this can go beyond capoeira, right? We're talking here about empowerment, but this is in life because of what Serenata said, how is I truly believe this is not a problem of capoeira. We just reflect society. Like what we bring here is what we experience outside. So if you see inappropriate behavior, to say that's not okay, and it's much easier if it's a room, for example, of 5 men and 1 woman, and a man comments to that woman that the one from the majority comments, then that person has to stand up and say, come on, are you really saying this to me? Just as an example. And ask the hard questions, and don't accept excuse for gender imbalance. For example, at events, today, how did we come, like we're talking about equality, and our 2 main guests are men, for example. That's probably something that has come up in people's mind when we started this discussion. It was a very lucky, happy coincidence that we had the opportunity to have Ms. Falcão and Ms. Cristina here. They're 2 men. But I thought, this is something that I've been developing my thinking around this topic for a while. And I said, well, here's an opportunity. We have a lot of female representation in our local community here. But this could be an opportunity to work on the visibility side. You know, these people here, they do their work, some are more known, some not so much. So I thought, you know, I'll create these opportunities. There's at Saro, they have a thing that's called the 50-50 pledge, where they say, you know, if you're going to an event, for example, commit to a panel if you're a woman, and you won't participate if there's an equal number of men and women, for example, and those sorts of actions. So we don't need to get to a situation where people don't want to do anything because they are afraid that, you know, I'm not being gender equal, but I think the facts, I think, talk by themselves, that we have something here to work on in terms of retention. Why are people getting up to a point and then things stop there? So that's where I'd like to leave it. And now for Q&A, such that hopefully you have lots of questions, and we may not have a lot of answers for them, but this is a reflection exercise. What we are suggesting here is that we'll take 3 questions at a time, and then 1, 2 people maximum answer each of the questions. So we don't need to have every single person answering all the questions, just so we get the most input from you guys. Okay? And so, just for the sake of the exercise we're doing here, I'll take the first question from a woman. Who would like to start?
Thanks, first of all, for sharing your stories. Very inspiring. And it's great that I think that all of you had good support from your masters and stuff. How much do you think it was also your effort and your hard training and your dedication? How much do you think that we as women, we have to work on that, because we always very ready to thank our teachers and our masters, but sometimes we forget to thank ourselves for all the work that we put into this. So what do you think? What is the percentage of that in your stories?
So that's question 1. Now I'm writing them down and then we'll answer them together. Does anybody else have any questions? What is block? Yes? You take one from Malu.
Change